Mr. Speaker, I start by stating on record that I support this motion, and if you look at the names of those members of parliament who have appended their signatures for the removal or initiation of the process of removal of this cabinet secretary, I am number 57. Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to just mention a few things. Number one, National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, has a responsibility, and this responsibility is given to us by the people of Kenya through the constitution that we have today. Article 95, Mr. Speaker, 5 of the constitution, and I want to read, gives the National Assembly the responsibility to review the conduct of in office of the President, the Deputy President, and other state officers, including cabinet secretaries, and initiates the process of removing them from office. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are embarking on today is one of those cardinal responsibilities given to National Assembly by the people of Kenya to review the conduct of a cabinet secretary, one Linturi, to hold office with a view to initiate the process of removing him. But Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with those members of parliament who think they want to save Linturi. If I were you, if you love this cabinet secretary, the more reason you should vote for this motion. Mr. Speaker, today we are not removing Linturi. By this motion, we are not removing Linturi. If you read, Mr. Speaker, Article 152 of the Constitution, which gives details of how to remove a cabinet secretary from office, it states that if a motion, it states that a member of the National Assembly, like Honorable Jack Wamboka has done, supported by at least 1/4 of all the members of the Assembly, may propose a motion requiring the President to dismiss a cabinet secretary. That is the motion we are dealing with today. And the grounds are stated. But Mr. Speaker, the same article goes ahead to mention that if this motion is supported by at least 1/3 this morning of the members of the National Assembly, then the Assembly shall appoint a select committee comprising of 11 of its members to investigate the matter. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the document presented to us by Honorable Wamboka, the only way justice can be done to this cabinet secretary is for this House to push this matter forward so that a select committee of this House will have an opportunity to look at the details as presented. How else, Mr. Speaker, will we even know that this telephone call was made by Honorable Linturi if we don't give opportunity to this House to appoint a select committee to go and scrutinize, get to the bottom of these details, and bring a report to us? If they find that these matters are not substantiated, if the committee shall find that these matters are not properly substantiated, then the matter will end there. The committee will report back to the House and the matter will die. But if the matters will have been found to have been substantiated, then this House will proceed to take another vote, Mr. Speaker, where even before we take the vote, we will present Honorable Linturi with an opportunity to address this parliament and defend himself. That is the time we will know that he is innocent or is not innocent. But stopping this process at this stage would be reckless, would be careless, and would demonstrate a House that does not know its responsibility. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to also add that it is not just on grounds of gross violation of the provisions of this Constitution that you would initiate a process of removing a cabinet secretary. It is not only on the grounds of where serious reasons of believing that the cabinet secretary has committed a crime under the national or international law that a process like this would be initiated. This process would even be initiated if we have a reason to believe that there is gross misconduct on the part of the cabinet secretary. And Mr. Speaker, based on the evidence that Honorable Wamboka has presented to this House, and particularly I'm concerned about the issues of National Cereals and Produce Board. Mr. Speaker, the first question that I would ask those who want to oppose this motion, are you telling us that National Cereals and Produce Board would go ahead with the budgetary provision given by this House as proposed by the Cabinet Secretary, presented to us? We give out money. This money goes and buys kokoto instead of fertilizer, given to our farmers, and only whistleblowers are able to know. Yet we have a ministry which has a cabinet secretary heading that ministry, and that cabinet secretary is ignorant. But Mr. Speaker, what worries me more is the evidence that is produced before us through a letter that is written by a lawyer, Ahmed Nasir Mohammed. And clearly, Ahmed Nasir is telling us that Mithika Linturi even attempted to subvert justice by trying to dictate or order this particular factory to go and issue a statement. And the evidence is there. The telephone number is there. Calls were made. Safari can confirm the same. And that is why I want to plead with this House, Mr. Speaker, that this is a matter that we cannot treat casually. This is a matter of hunger. It is a matter of food. It is a matter of food security in this country. It is a matter that can bring this country to anarchy, as the minority leader said. We must show responsibility. You are elected by your people to come and speak for them. They don't have a voice. They cannot talk to Mithika Linturi. It is you who can speak to Mithika Linturi. It is you who can speak to William Ruto, who appointed Mithika Linturi. And when these cabinet secretaries were appointed, Mr. Speaker, I remember saying that this is going to go in the records of history as the most incompetent cabinet. And you can already see that some people are protecting, Mr. Speaker, Mithika Linturi and claiming that he was ignorant of what was happening in National Cereals and Produce Board. Mr. Speaker, if Mr. Linturi can be ignorant of what is happening at the National Cereals and Produce Board, then what can he be ignorant about? This is an incompetent...
Honorable Mbadi, there's a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 83, as read together with Standing Order number 91, on the accuracy of information that is being provided by my very good friend, the Honorable Mbadi. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the Member of Parliament, for the nominated Member of Parliament to claim that he had already made up his mind from the time the Cabinet Secretaries were nominated or appointed that they were incompetent, so that his information that he had at that time, which he never gave us in the House, when we were approving Mithika Linturi, is it in order, Mr. Speaker, for somebody to redact information which we thought he had or which he thinks he should have had? The accuracy of his information, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, is in fact one thing. He is alleging that in fact the conduct of the President is not at issue here. In fact, if he wants to bring a substantive motion with the issue of the conduct, he should not mention the President. He is not part of the motion that is in the House. The motion is in the House is with regard to the Honorable Mithika Linturi, who was his colleague in the 13th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for him to claim that he had this information but he never gave to the House? That is very misleading, Mr. Speaker.
Wind up.
Mr. Speaker, you know, Honorable Chepkonga could be older than me by age, but he is not older than me in this House, and I don't know why he is resting so early. You still have time to be here, so don't rust. Please just remain active, focused on what I say. Mr. Speaker, I was reminding the President, we are appealing to the President as the appointing authority. That is what we are doing here. The President has to remove this Cabinet Secretary from office. We are speaking to him. We are telling him this is one of your incompetent Cabinet Secretaries. Please hear us. Listen to us. I said this when these Cabinet Secretaries were being approved. It is on record. I even use words that I don't want to repeat today. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying in a nutshell, Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I want to plead with this House. Please allow this motion to go through so that we can appoint a select committee of 11 members to interrogate this matter, look at it into details, look at the evidence adduced, so that if there is no evidence, we will let Linturi continue running the ministry. If there is evidence, let us get him out, get another Kenyan, even if we want a Kenyan from that region where he comes from. There are so many competent Kenyans from that region, that county, that part of the country. Mr. Speaker, I want to plead and persuade, including the majority leader, support this motion so that we can have these matters settled in a professional manner through the committee of this House. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I hear my good friend, Honorable John Buddy, asking me to support, and I rise to oppose this motion, Honorable Speaker, by the Honorable Member for Bumula, the Honorable Jack Wanami Wamboka. But allow me, Honorable Speaker, to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Jack Wamboka for having the courage and fortitude to not only collect signatures and bring this motion, but also to prosecute it. Although he has performed dismally in his prosecution of the motion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I keenly listened to you on Tuesday when you made your communication, Honorable Speaker, on this motion. Honorable Speaker, this House is guided, or rather, as you stated, is a house of rules, and is guided by not just by the standing orders, but also by a constitution. Honorable Speaker, if you read through standing orders 64 to 66 of our standing orders, you will realize that the Honorable Wamboka's motion falls flat and contra our standing orders and also the constitution, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is also true that matters to do with removal of office of public officers, as you stated in your communication, Honorable Speaker, are largely guided also by precedents and borrows heavily from court rulings and the threshold set in. Honorable Speaker, the famous Wambora cases on the removal of former governor for Embu County speaks volumes. Honorable Speaker, in that case, the Wambora case, one of the things that was made clear is that there must be a very clear nexus between the person being removed from office and the alleged grounds on which that removal is sought. Therefore, the question we ought to ask ourselves, Honorable Speaker, has the mover of this motion, Honorable Jack Wamboka, created or shown us that nexus between the person being removed from office as cabinet secretary and the alleged grounds of removal? And the straight answer, Honorable Speaker, is none. There is completely no nexus between the allegations that the Honorable Jack Wamboka presented in his moving of this motion, Honorable Speaker. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, if you listen to Honorable Jack Wamboka, Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from the members who are consulting very loudly. Honorable Speaker, I was asking if you can protect me from the loud consultations.
Order.
Especially here.
Order, honorable members. Members on their feet. Your standing orders say only the members speaking should be on their feet. If you are in transit, then transit to where you are going. Go on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I was stating that the Honorable Jack Wamboka has completely failed to show us the nexus between the allegations that he was speaking about and the person he seeks to remove from office. Indeed, in his own submission, Honorable Speaker, he has alluded to issues touching on procurement and distribution of fertilizer by the National Cereals and Produce Board. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Jack Wamboka is not an ordinary member of Parliament. The Honorable Jack Wamboka, and congratulations to him, is a first-time member of Parliament, but also serving as a senior member of this House as a chair of the Public Investments Committee. And therefore he knows, because he oversees these parastatals some of these parastatals in PIC, that parastatals are semi-autonomous of ministries. And indeed, the State Corporations Act is very clear that ministers, principal secretaries or accounting officers cannot and must never be seen to micromanage parastatals or state corporations. The Honorable Amboka has failed to show us the nexus between CS Mithika Linturi and the procurement processes or distribution of fertilizers at NCPB. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, he also failed to inform the House that DCI that has been investigating this matter has already preferred charges against arrested and preferred charges which the DPP has consented to for the prosecution of officers that DCI feels might be culpable on the matter of the procurement and distribution of this fertilizer, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, I was waiting, Honorable Speaker, with bated breath for the Honorable Amboka to show us that nexus. He has failed to do so. And therefore, this motion falls flat on its face, on the face of the Honorable Jack Amboka. Honorable Speaker, it also lacks any clear precision of the violations of law and the Constitution. And the Honorable Amboka did not show us any clear violation of any section of the law or indeed of the Constitution by CS Mithika Linturi. Honorable Speaker, look at the probate value. And I think the Honorable Murugara had alluded to it. The Honorable Mbaya had also alluded to the probate value of the issues that the Honorable Jack Amboka has tabled before the House. Honorable Speaker, he took us through what the Honorable Member for Kilifi North was telling us were not just excerpts from Citizen, NTV, Nation newspapers, Star newspaper, and other media houses. And Honorable Speaker, we have tremendous respect for our media houses because as a fourth estate, they have a duty like we do to oversight government and the executive, Honorable Speaker. And we must allow our media houses to help us to raise issues that are also of concern to the people of Kenya, just like we raise. But media houses cannot be the basis, Honorable Speaker, in line with our own procedures in this House, to adduce evidence before this House. And Honorable Speaker, I dare ask, if we were to prosecute, if we were to impeach CS Mithika Linturi on the basis of newspaper articles, Honorable Speaker, allow me the indulgence, Honorable Speaker, to read a newspaper article that was featured by the Sunday Nation on April 14, 2024. And this article, Honorable Speaker, said that House Team Boss on extortion spree. And I'm reading this article, Honorable Speaker, so that we may ask ourselves, if I am that House boss being reported here on an extortion spree, would it be fair for us to impeach myself? If that House boss is the Honorable Amboka, the mover of this motion, how fair would it be for me to move the House to impeach the Honorable Amboka on the basis of a newspaper article from a gossip column like this one, Honorable Speaker? This article said that the chairman of a powerful committee is on the spot for harassing witnesses that appear before him. Talk of town has landed the chairman calls cabinet secretaries scheduled to appear before his committee and demands huge amounts of money in order to be looked at favorably when they appear. The CSAs were heard complaining that the MP is demanding and asks for money using threats at least 1 week before they appear in his committee. Those who fail to play ball by parting with cash demand are harassed during their appearance and negative reports are given on their manifesto. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker,
Member for Busia, you are total out of order to stand up and raise your hands. Order.
Honorable Speaker, I read this article because I am pointing to the issue of us using newspaper articles, media reports to to impeach state and public officers, including members of parliament, chairs of committees, cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, Honorable Speaker, that we cannot use the basis of newspaper reports to impeach anybody. And that's why I said, Honorable Speaker, if I was that house boss, only that I don't chair a committee, the Honorable Amboka Wanami is a chair of a powerful committee. How do I know? Who would know what this newspaper column was, who it was referring to? Supposing it was Honorable Amboka, how fair would it be for us to seek to impeach him on the basis of a gossip column, like he's calling on us to impeach a cabinet secretary today on the basis of newspaper and media reports? Speaker, I say, Honorable Speaker, he has completely failed to prove his case. Honorable Speaker, moving on, Honorable Speaker, is this motion a decoy? Honorable Speaker, and I have listened keenly to the Honorable John Barry, my good friend, prosecute the point like the leader of minority has prosecuted, that maybe we should allow this to move on to committee, and the committee of 11 will then look into the probate issues. But if the probate value of the evidence being adduced by the Honorable Amboka in the motion is defective ab initio, then we will be wasting valuable parliamentary time. Honorable Speaker, if you want committees to look into this issue, I am certain there are many members, including the member for Kwanza, who sit in the Agriculture Committee. A committee of this House is looking into the probate value of all the issues that were presented before that committee and is undertaking an inquiry into this matter. If I was the Honorable John Wamboka, I would have been patient to wait for the Agriculture Committee's inquiry to get substantive evidence that has probate value, evidence that has particulars, evidence that you can use to impeach a CS. Otherwise, what he has brought to us, Honorable Speaker, here is not even worth the paper published on these newspapers and the articles he has presented before the House. Just like this article speaking about a member of parliament extorting from cabinet secretaries is not worth our time. We should then not be wasting our time.
Molo, what is,
Honorable Speaker.
Order. Senior Counsel Molo, what is the problem?
Mr. Speaker, I stand under Standing Order 87, 4 and 91. Under 87.4, Mr. Speaker, no member can impute improper motives on any other member or members generally without a substantive motion within at least 3 days notice.
Order. Member for Kisumu West.
And in addition,
that is grossly out of order.
Mr. Speaker, there is no substantive motion.
Not a rally.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 87.4, you cannot impute improper motive either on a member or on the House without a substantive motion with at least 4 days notice. And under Standing Order 91, a member who then makes such a statement of fact must substantiate. Mr. Speaker, the leader of majority has just imputed that this House extorts from members of the cabinet. It does not matter that he's referring to some newspaper cutting which has not been tabled and which we do not know, and which he can also therefore not properly refer to. Mr. Speaker, I urge that you urge that the majority leader is out of order to retract those words and that they be extracted from the answer. Because anyone listening might actually think that we are tacitly admitting and approving those falsities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senior Counsel, I understood it differently. I thought he was speaking about it in the negative, that we cannot pick a gossip column and use it as evidence against anybody. So as a matter of fact, order, as a matter of fact, the way I understood is that he's saying a gossip column cannot be a statement of fact. and that no member has extorted anybody unless there is evidence. So you are saying the same thing as far as I understand. Order, carry on, Majority Leader. Order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, you have captured it very well. And the point I was making, Honorable Speaker, for the benefit of the Honorable Tiende Amolo, in fact, I used my own example, and probably that of the Honorable John Wamboka, Honorable Jack Wamboka. That, Honorable Speaker, the same way the Honorable Jack Wamboka has presented newspaper articles, media reports, is the same way anybody cannot present such gossip columns as this, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, that's why I was arguing, Honorable Speaker, that there lacks particulars, there is no precision on the gross violation of the Constitution. Jack Wamboka has completely failed to show us that, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I was on the point of whether this particular motion is a decoy to derail the substantive inquiry that is before this House by a committee of this House, Honorable Speaker. And I want, Honorable Speaker, to humbly submit that I find this motion as a decoy, as such decoy, to make sure that we hide those who are ultimately culpable by derailing the Committee for Agriculture from doing its work. And I want to encourage members of the Agriculture Committee to get to the bottom of this fertilizer issue, Honorable Speaker. Ensure that the inquiry pinpoints to us those who are ultimately culpable. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, I was saying, if I were the Honorable Jack Wamboka, I would have been very patient to wait for the Agriculture Committee to tell us who or which organization or which particular state officers are culpable, including the cabinet secretaries and the PSs. Should the Agriculture Committee find the cabinet secretary, the principal secretaries, those at NCPB culpable, then we have a duty and an obligation to the country to hold them to account. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, as things stand now, the Honorable Jack Wamboka has completely failed, Honorable Speaker. This motion, Honorable Speaker, finally seeks to remove the CS on grounds that there are serious reasons to believe that the Cabinet Secretary has committed a crime under national law. Honorable Speaker, this ground requires the Honorable Jack Wamboka to have attached evidence of conviction or judgment made against the accused person. He has failed to do so. In fact, he has gone to great lengths, Honorable Speaker, to quote cases that, as somebody, I think is Honorable Owen Bayer, pointed out, cases that we considered at the point the House vetted the Honorable Linturi as Cabinet Secretary and approved. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, as the Honorable Owen Bayer was alluding to, that is a matter that is already spent. The Honorable Jack Wamboka therefore cannot take the House back to relook into those cases. And may I remind him, when the Honorable CS appeared before the committee, he said he had 32 court cases that he was battling with, some civil, and he was dealing with them. And the committee, including the member for Bumula, approved the Cabinet Secretary to serve as Cabinet Secretary. How then do you retract your own steps or call the House to retract our own steps, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, allow me to conclude by just saying, Honorable Speaker, that the mover of this motion, as courageous as he thought he was, he has completely failed the House. He has failed to show us the precision with the law that he ought to show in line with the Constitution and the standing orders. I have spoken to the probate value of the evidence he has adduced that is not there. The grounds, as I said, Honorable Speaker, are particularly not particularized in line with our standing order 64 and 66. And that is why I said he's quoting newspaper articles, which I also said I could quote about chairs of committees and other people who are said to extort people money. And Honorable Speaker, allow me, Honorable Speaker, then to plead with this House to defeat this motion because it will derail the fight against corruption. If we derail the fight against corruption, Honorable Speaker, by using such motions to speak to the gallery, to speak to our voters, to speak about corruption but never acting over corruption, Honorable Speaker, Remember in the 11th Parliament, Honorable Speaker,
Wind up in a minute.
in the State of the Nation address, 200 state officers were declared jobless. But what came out of that political pronouncement, Honorable Speaker? Absolutely nothing. That is what the Honorable Jack Kwamboka is calling on this House to do, to make a political declaration in the impeachment of CS, but get absolutely no value in the fight against corruption. Allow our Committee for Agriculture to expedite its inquiry, find those who are culpable to be charged before courts, allow DCI, EACC to complete their investigations, and call on us. If you find any public officer culpable, we shall be there to support you to impeach anybody who will be found culpable subsequent to credible investigations. But these other political things from newspaper cuttings, my friend Jack Kwamboka, falls flat. And I would beg you this early to withdraw this motion to save yourself from the embarrassment, Honorable Jack Kwamboka. This is why the Constitution put a very high threshold.
Daniel Manduku. Daniel Manduku. Nyaribari Masaba. Give him a mic. Take the one next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion of impeachment of the Honorable Mithika Linturi as CS for Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion not just because I represent farmers in Nyaribari Masaba, nor is it because my own mother is a victim of the fake fertilizer scam. Neither is it because I'm a farmer. But I support this motion because I feel that it's a moral obligation that I'm faced with as a member of parliament and as a leader in this country. Mr. Speaker, when the fake fertilizer scam came up, Honorable Linturi went to the media and denied the existence of any fake fertilizer. After that, he blamed the opposition and called us saboteurs. Later on, the Deputy President came and confirmed that indeed there was existence of fake fertilizer in the market, whereupon Honorable Linturi confirmed himself. And depending on who was speaking at the time, the number of bags kept changing between 3,000 and 50,000. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Linturi has served in the Ministry of Agriculture for about 2 years. We've not had any major transformative ideas from Honorable Linturi to make agriculture grow, given that it is the backbone of our country. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with my minority leader that we should not have gotten to this point, given that the President himself, even as late as yesterday, told the nation that he's not here to make popular decisions. We expect the President, now that he has set the standard himself and he has a marking scheme, to take action immediately if this House does not get Mr. Linturi out. Honorable Speaker, our agriculture sector has faced a serious downturn, and it is time that the President puts somebody who can upturn the sector, given that millions and millions of our people depend on agriculture. Mr. Speaker, looking at the evidence before us today and hearing the submissions by members, it is very obvious that right from the procurement, manufacture, distribution, warehousing, and eventual delivery of the fertilizer, Honorable Linturi's hands and feet are all over these documents. There is sufficient evidence, Honorable Speaker, to send Honorable Linturi home. My plea to my friends, especially members of parliament from areas that practice agriculture, is to put aside our party positions and look at this as a critical national agenda and support the removal of Honorable Mithika Linturi as CS for Agriculture on the basis of his incompetence and lack of collective responsibility. Mr. Speaker, if the President wants to know the real saboteur in his cabinet, he should point at Honorable Mithika Linturi. Our farmers, if you get a low yield this year or your crop fails, point at the face of Honorable Mithika Linturi. To our children who are watching TV today, if your teacher asks you what the definition of incompetence is, tell him it is Honorable Mithika Linturi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rahim Daud.
He has been ranked the worst performing just now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I oppose this motion. Mr. Speaker, the mover of this motion, Honorable Wamboka, has said very, very passionately and emotionally that he is for the farmers. Mr. Speaker, we are all for the farmers. The whole House is for the farmers. Mr. Speaker, he should lay the blame where it is and not at the feet of the Honorable CS. Mr. Speaker, on our order paper, page 508, he says serious reasons for believing that the Cabinet Secretary has committed a crime under national law. We go to the second one, B, where he says he faces criminal proceedings in relation to 6 pending civil, commercial and family suits. Mr. Speaker, what has his family suits got to do with it or civil suits? Mr. Speaker, when we were approving, because I was in the appointments committee where we did with Honorable Opio Wandai and the others, and the minority whip, a majority leader, deputy majority leader, we did the vetting of the CS. And yes, he did say, yeah, he had those cases. But Mr. Speaker, those cases are in a court of law. So is he now bringing other things which are not related to fertilizer in his pleadings? Mr. Speaker, I think that is completely wrong. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, on the same page, he says that the Cabinet Secretary supplied misleading information. That one is in 1E, where 51 Capital Africa was given a contract which was signed by NCPB in the year 2022, when Honorable Mithika Linturi was not even the CS. So is he apportioning the blame for what was done in March 2022 to Honorable CS Linturi? I think Honorable Wamboka and some of the members here have got a vendetta against the CS Linturi, because CS Linturi handles more than 100 sagas under his ministry, and he cannot be seen to be supervising each and every saga in his ministry, Mr. Speaker.